Hello, everybody. This is Matt, and I'm here to welcome you to a very special mini episode from the No Fear podcast. Ordinarily, these mini episodes are something that we provide for our $5 a month Patreon donors, but this is a bit of a special occasion, and so we thought that we would release this for all of our listeners. And the reason is, this mini episode, we are celebrating our 1-year anniversary as a podcast. So for this mini episode, we thought we'd just sit back and ruminate over the last year, maybe talk about the things we enjoyed, the things that we would maybe do slightly differently, and just see where that takes us. But happy birthday to the No Fear podcast from the No Fear podcast. When we were talking in preparation for this mini episode, one of the things that we kind of came up was just what we've done for the last year, and I think I can speak for all of us when I say we're definitely very proud of all the work we've done. I mean, I'm super excited by this podcast and getting to do it, and very proud of all the things that we've done. But I will say, one of the things that I just wish, it was not something that I wish we could have done differently, but just it was a matter of timing. I just wish that when we did our series on zombies, that the movie Get Out had been released, because we were talking about this, and I have so much to say about that movie, and I know it's come up in some of our previous episodes before about how much I love that movie. But there's a lot to say about how Get Out harkens back to those old Caribbean and voodoo zombies, and I'm really fascinated by it. I think there's a whole wealth of information to explore with that movie in terms of its influences by the Caribbean zombies. And I just wish that had been out when we did the zombies series, because I know we would have talked about it and it would have been a perfect time for it. But alas, that was something that was beyond our control. So, but overall, I mean, I love all the stuff we've done. I've had a blast. The zombie stuff is, of course, very close to my heart, but I've actually had a lot of fun doing the stuff we've been doing this summer, some of these Masters of Horror and talking about these movies and other things. The summer sci-fi drive-in, I definitely really enjoyed the Mars Attacks one recently, so that's kind of my take on the last year. I'm definitely looking forward to year 2 and season 2 of the No Fear podcast, and definitely excited by some of the things that we've got coming in the works.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Matt, about the Get Out. I hope we do an entire episode dedicated to that in the future. And it would have been perfect had we known it was coming. We could have held off on doing our zombie series to incorporate that. But that's one of the nice things about doing this podcast, is that we'll be able to revisit some of these topics, because we just touched on them. On each one, there was more that we could say. One of my favorite series was the occult series, and I feel like we did not give the Victorian spiritualists and the Fox sisters nearly enough time dedicated to it, because there was so much going around with what the Victorian spiritualists did outside of spiritualism. You know, running for president and things of that nature. And I would really like to see us revisit that topic for sure. But I enjoyed the summer episodes where we kind of got to let loose a little bit and have some fun. I particularly enjoyed the Day of the Triffids episode that we got to invite Alex and Alistair from Pseudopod, because that was such a great conversation. And it was one of those, I was very eager to jump right back into Wyndham's other things after doing that episode. But man, we had some good people on the podcast this past year. We had our interview with Ruth Franklin, who did the Shirley Jackson biography. That was back in January. And of course, we had Andy Davidson talking about his debut novel, In the Valley of the Sun, at the beginning of the summer, and the buzz that book has been getting. I think I saw earlier today that he was number 3 on Amazon for Western horror. In fact, he had surpassed briefly Cormac McCarthy's Blood Meridian. So that was kind of fun to see that happen. And I look forward to the topics we're going to discuss, but I also look forward to, the people that we're going to get to talk to through this podcast.
Yeah, I agree with everything both of you guys are saying. I hope the listeners are really enjoying this podcast so far, because I'm really enjoying doing it. It's just a lot of fun to talk to you guys about all these cool topics. And yeah, I mean, while haunted houses was kind of my jam, I had a lot of fun with the occult series. And I agree with you, Lisa, that we need to keep going with the spiritualists, because they're just so awesomely zany in ways that you really wouldn't think. And yeah, I love the opportunity to kind of nerd out with folks about things that I love, but also learn new things. Like I was not a big zombie person before we did this, but I learned a lot about them and got to read and watch new things that I maybe wouldn't have before. So doing the research for this stuff is really interesting. Or Rebecca, like I should have read Rebecca a long time ago, but I was kind of like moved to do it because of preparation for this podcast. So that nerd part of me that loves to read and watch new stuff and kind of make connections just really loves what we've been doing. And the movies were a lot of fun too. I've been a fan of Day of the Triffids for a long time, and so getting to talk about that book and the movie with the Pseudopod folks was a lot of fun. Talking about Plan 9 from Outer Space was a lot of fun. And I tell you, this podcast has totally changed the way I do research in my academic life, too, because not only am I now jotting down notes while I'm reading about stuff I need for what I'm working on, but I'm also like, oh, crap, I didn't even know that movie existed. Maybe we should do that for the podcast, So, yeah, I hope the listeners enjoy the stuff that we've been bringing up and talking about, because I think I can reiterate that we've all had a lot of fun doing this.
Oh, man, we've had a blast doing it. I mean, it is the one thing that I look forward to. It never seems like a chore.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's changed the way I research as well. Like you said, Mel, one thing I've noticed is that it's really changed the way I view history almost, because when somebody starts, for instance, now talking about the 1950s or 1960s America, I immediately want to just, start talking about nuclear and Cold War fears. And I want to start breaking apart dystopias with them. And, so it's interesting the way it's kind of changed the way I have conversations with people now, but also the way I look at certain time periods and other novels written in the same time that may not be considered horror or science fiction or, in anything that's kind of, I guess, left of center. You can really see how they're interacting with each other in a broader conversation, which is kind of fun.
I will say, too, that, I've always been a bit of a paranoid person in terms of the end of the world, and the recent nuclear tensions with North Korea have not really done much to help make me feel better about that. But definitely our series on the apocalypse also, I think, was what really started my downward mental spiral of, oh God, we're all going to die. So,
I think it did that to all three of us. We had a lot of anxious planning meetings about that one.
we absolutely did. And I very much enjoyed doing that series as well. It was a lot of fun talking about the things and whatnot, but it definitely did impact my daily life for a little while, where I was once again a little bit more aware of, oh, wow, there have been several times in the history of humanity where we were frighteningly close to killing ourselves as a species, and yeah.
So what you're saying, Matt, is that, we may revisit the occult or even zombies this season, at least a little bit. But I think we all agree for our mental health, we need to put, any sort of a apocalypse talk off for a while. We all need to just kind of recover and let our brains relax a bit.
For a little while, for sure.
We have to put our heads back into the sand for a little bit.
You laugh, but I think that is what prompted our more relaxed summer, I guess, because we did finish with the apocalypse being our last series that we talked about before we moved into summer. And that's when we started doing Masters of Horror and the sci-fi summer drive-in. And those were a lot more fun to do. And I think we all needed that. I think we needed that break. Yeah.
And we got to talk about spiders coming out of cracks in the ceiling.
And the anxiety is back again. Thank you, Mel.
Sorry about that.
As I look up to my ceiling.
Oh,
we
man.
also talked about Mars Attacks, which, I mean, I had forgotten how great that movie is. It's been forever since I've seen it, so I'm really glad that I don't remember who suggested it, but I'm really glad that we did that one as our summer sci-fi.
Oh, it was Lisa, because you and I really didn't know what to do, and Lisa's like, I've been thinking about Mars Attacks, and we were like, why aren't we all thinking about Mars Attacks?
Yeah, that was that is a little peek into my brain. On a daily basis, I'm just walking around and suddenly a scene from Mars Attacks pops up and,
Well, now I definitely am imitating the aliens a lot. And so I was actually at work the other day and was making the noise, that ack noise, because I was frustrated at something. And I think somebody overheard me, but they didn't say anything, and so I just let it go.
Yeah, we need to start using ack as profanity, swear words like ack. No one would know what you were talking about.
Yeah. The podcast is kind of bleeding into my regular life in that way. I mean, I have to admit, I made an awful lot of Day of the Triffids references during the eclipse recently, and I didn't find many people who knew what I was talking about, which made me sad. But the neat thing about it is when you talk about these topics out in the quote unquote real world, when you do find those people who know the subject and are interested in the subject, I don't know, there's kind of this bond. It's like, I found a kindred spirit. I'm going to attach myself to you now so that we can talk about this. And that's been a fun thing. That's been a really fun thing to think through all these things. And
oh yeah, Day of the Triffids just keeps popping up for me. I was reading a book the other day about Doctor Who and adaptations for something I'm working on, and one of the chapters was about how Day of the Triffids influenced one of Doctor Who's classic serials, Seeds of Doom. And I was thinking to myself, yes, it did. Why did I not think of that? That book and that movie is just everywhere in science fiction.
Well, I can definitely say that it certainly feels like, too, as the year has gone by, like, first of all, it's flown by. It really does not feel like we've been doing this for an entire year. So I think part of that has to do with, like both of you said, just how enjoyable this experience is. And, it really, most of the time, does not feel like a chore at all. Sometimes, since I am the one doing the audio editing, that can be a little tedious. But it's tedium that is certainly worth it. And I just think about how much this podcast has progressed in the last year or two, that we've got regular listeners, and I keep an eye on our download numbers and whatnot, and I think I speak for all three of us when I say thank you, because we could be doing this for just a single listener, but it definitely makes us feel good to know that we have people that are listening to us regularly, and we're absolutely appreciative of the fact that you seem to enjoy this little thing that we're doing. And I don't know what else to say, but thank you, the listeners, for helping us continue to be a podcast.
Also, if Matt didn't do such a good job editing, y'all would be listening to like 3 minutes of laughter.
It's true.
Yes, I was going to say, she says this, and you may think that she is joking, but there was one particular episode where I did text them when I was done and said I just cut off the last 2 minutes because it was just us laughing. So I'll leave which episode it was for you to try to figure out.
Oh, that's ominous.
Thank you for the compliment, Mel. But
hey, no problem. We appreciate it.
Yeah, big thank you to you, Matt, because I think Mel and I both would be lost if we were trying to edit anything audio related. So we're very thankful that you can do that. And yeah, I want to echo what you said about the listeners. it's nice to know that there are people out there who are interested in the same types of things. And that just, that gives me all the warm, fuzzy feelings that only horror can bring. So.
Are you sure warm and fuzzy is those are the right
is.
adjectives? Okay.
I don't know. How would you describe your horror?
A little more anxiety and
bone chilling.
I guess I'm speaking more about the horror community.
Okay.
Than the genre itself. But it's nice to know that we've kind of found this, weird little nook in the world, and that there are other people who like it too. So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's nice to talk to an audience of people who are really interested in what you're talking about. Fellow teachers out there, I think you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I think we can all second that one. Current and former teachers alike. Well, I guess just to kind of wrap things up, as always, thank you, listeners. Like we've already said, it really is, like, as I think about it, like Lisa said, it is very nice to know that we're not alone in, I guess you could say, our weirdness and our love of these horror and everything else. And we'll be actually, since this is our 1 year anniversary, we're going to be kicking off an official season 2, where we'll be getting back into some more series that stretch out over multiple episodes. We've learned a lot about how to do things and what to do over the last year, and we definitely hope that you will continue to stick with us as we keep growing and exploring this wonderful corner of the universe that we call horror. So thank you again, and we've got a lot of really cool stuff coming up. I hate to tease it without being too specific, but we are definitely very excited about some of the things coming up very soon. So stick around. We promise you will not be disappointed. Thank you for listening.